We're back with another edition of the Smart Driving Cars podcast. We appreciate you spending time with us once again. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University and co-author of the new book, The Real Case for Driverless Mobility, Alan Kornhauser. Hi, Alan.
Hi, good morning. I have a co-author.
You sure do, and he's with us from Sweden. Publisher of The Dispatcher, Michael Senna. Hi, Michael.
Good to be here again. Hello, Alan.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, Fred.
Well, terrific, Michael. Good to see you. In the latest edition of The Dispatcher, you start off talking about the book and how many of your readers actually contributed to it, unknowingly perhaps. And you also have an extended version of the prologue, I think.
Yeah, the publisher decided to put the prologue into an abbreviated form and use it as the back cover, which I think is terrific, because there you can pretty much get a feel for the entire book by reading the back cover, and I think they did a very good job of summarizing it. In the original prologue, we gave more of a background about how the book came to be, why we decided to write the book, what the book's main intentions were, and that's not part of any of the other parts of the book. And I think it is important for us to have made it very clear that this book isn't an end point. This is a beginning point. We wrote it in order for us to be able to put our thoughts in a place where we can pull them out, deliver presentations like Alan's giving one. I guess gave one yesterday, and we'll be giving more in the future. So it is a summary of the book in many ways, although the digital version has our abstracts. The printed version doesn't include the abstracts. I'm not really sure why, but so when you buy a book, you get the digital version as well, and in there are the abstracts. So yeah, that was the intention of the prologue.
We're in the midst of work on the audiobook version, so that will be coming. Meanwhile, you'll be hearing through the podcast, read the book.
Read the book.
Yeah,
Alan is delivering that message loud and clear.
well, it is, and I think that what you did in the Dispatcher is really put the book in context to what is happening today. It amazes me how lucky we are to have published this book at this time. I keep saying that, I got very sick 4 years ago. I think I died and went to heaven. I think this is all heaven. Because it is so pertinent today. And you make it very clear in the introduction to the Dispatcher, what the motivation is here in the book, and what we've been talking about for very long time, which would be the motivation of this. I'm calling it a hammer today. It's a hammer that's supposed to do what? And the nail that really this hammer that's had, like to say, what, $300 billion invested in creating it and whatever, is at least to us meant for a certain kind of nail to attach certain kinds of things. Not everything, but at least some things that seem to be a need. And what I stress in my course I'm teaching on, and I've been telling the students the whole time, is need is the mother of invention. And in fact, you start with the need. You don't start with the hammer looking around. You can, okay, but it certainly seems to be better when that hammer is designed with a proper focus on the need. And you bring it out so well in what you wrote in the introduction, to the Dispatcher here. It really is. Okay, and read the book, because My goodness, as I said yesterday, all this work, all this sort of, in some sense, lifetime's worth of work, basically going up in flames in San Francisco. Boy, did that hurt me. And I don't like when things hurt me. I guess I'm not different than anybody else. How insulted was I? How could you take, life's work basically to try to provide better mobility for people where they live that don't happen to have, access to whatever is the top kind of mobility that other people have access to, and you torch it? What the hell have I been doing wrong in all this time? And it's just, my good. Well, what the heck have you been selling, Waymo? How could you take this and position it that way? Because that's not the nail that the hammer that you've designed and gotten working. You've got it working so well. You were so good. You did it so well. Darn it. And now you're trying to do what with it? Compete with Uber? Re-chumpeter. I mean, what do you have so much money to make up for what's been invested on all your hard work. If you're chasing Uber, good luck. Okay? Now, maybe if you chase what I think you should be chasing, or we think you should be chasing, then maybe I guess you've decided you're going to be even worse off than chasing Uber. But that's my view. That's the wrong nail, and there does exist other nails out there. One of the things that I presented yesterday is, some of us there's a request for proposal out of Department of Transportation to see whether AVs can provide mobility to rural areas. And I think that's a real question. That is a real question. I was shocked when I went and looked. Maybe it's because my data, my whatever, isn't real. That, oh my goodness, even in the lowest density parts of the US of A, I suspect that for some people there, this would be a godsend. That in the end, to do there should be absolutely trivial. Most of the time, as long as you don't want to decide you absolutely have to drive down dirt roads or roads with who knows what kind of boulders or streams, or in heavy snow, or in places. But there are so many other rural areas in the US of A that have reasonable roads. 98% of the time have reasonable weather. 95% of the time have reasonable, 80% of the time have even 50% of the time have reasonable weather. The good that you could do for practically nothing, incremental on what you've done, enormous. And it doesn't seem like you're even thinking of it. You're chasing Uber. Maybe you want to go to the really dense places with a lot of people and a lot of revelers because you can do surge pricing. Guess what? You got torched. Pay attention.
Well, turning to the dispatcher from Dispatch Central, another hold your horses dealer letter. Car dealers in the U.S. have sent another letter to the White House. Michael, give us the overview. What's going on?
We can't, wherever you are, whether you're in Sweden or the United States, and I look at news and BBC News, CNN, Swedish newspapers. That's my morning ritual. There have been a lot of articles recently about the difficulty dealers are having in all regions of the world, including China, to sell battery electric vehicles. The dealers in the United States sent a letter back in November, and I wrote about this in the Dispatcher back then, to the president saying, "Dear Mr. President, we think you're going a little bit too fast. We are not experiencing the kind of demand for battery electric vehicles for a number of reasons. You're pushing us into a position where we're going to have to deliver vehicles to customers who don't want them. And we think the result of that is going to be that they're not going to buy them. They're going to buy something else, or they're not going to buy cars at all. With your push in by the EPA for higher or say lower emissions, and by definition, what you've included in there as your requirement, and I won't call it a standard, even though the government calls it a standard. It's not a standard; it's a requirement. Means that we can only meet those requirements by having zero emissions in the vehicle. And right now, the only thing that we've got that's zero emissions is battery electric vehicles. You're moving too quickly, and this is the same message that's been delivered in all places. They didn't receive a response to the November letter. As far as I know, they haven't received a response to the letter that went out recently. The first one had 4,000 signatures. This one had 5,000 signatures. It said, please hold your horses. You're moving too quickly. You're moving faster than the market, that people aren't buying these things. But what they are buying, pay attention to this, what they are buying is hybrids. You're buying hybrids because hybrids deliver more of what customers want. They want low emissions. They want better fuel economy, fewer miles, more miles per gallon, or more kilometers per kilometer. But you're pushing battery electric vehicles. So it seems that consumers, dealers, people who are working in the industry have begun to realize that what the car manufacturers said many years ago, and then because of various events, starting back in 2008, 2009, with the economy going, or the Great Depression, car companies essentially, declaring bankruptcy, coming back, being bailed out, unable to really push their voice forward to the government because they're in the government's hands. As the Chinese now saw their opportunity of building battery electric vehicles, they're in a position right now to just clean up, to just take all of the business for all vehicles if governments continue to pursue this course that they're on right now. But it seems that even in the government circles, I mean, President Biden has been calling for, more. Let's take another look at all of these Chinese cars that are coming into the United States. Maybe there's a reason they shouldn't be coming in here, but it's not because they're battery electric vehicles and they're going to be selling the prices that customers can afford. It's for other reasons, security reasons. But I think the message is getting through right now. Governments have moved too quickly. They're pushing a technology which customers and the market itself, for all of the reasons that we've been discussing, just aren't ready for it. So we're going to see how this plays out in the next.
And you're seeing some changes in the attitudes in Europe as well, right?
Absolutely. And as soon as the governments slow down with subsidies, customers start buying. As soon as they push subsidies, customers start buying again, because it's a matter of economics. And the people who are buying are people who do have an alternative. When that car isn't running, when it's not going to go to where they need to go, they've got another car. We're still selling to those buyers who are able to afford 50, 60, $70,000 or 80,000 euro cars, who have a place to charge it at home, who can use their driveways or their garages. And by the way, garages are really essential when we get to the dispatch central crew comments. If you're living in Concord, New Hampshire, or up north in Maine, and anywhere where it's been cold this winter, you've gotten a wake up call with your battery electric vehicles. 50% of the range that you had suddenly disappears.
You highlight a letter from Michael Wells of Norway, written to The Economist, and its seeming support of EVs coming from China.
I've just a little aside here. I've been watching the Sinovacation of the Economist over the last couple of years. I don't know I know who's in charge, and I know they must be getting a lot of money from various Chinese sources. But boy, they really have been pushing China in their newspaper for the last couple of years. I mean, it's even gotten to the point where Lexington is, in the last two issues, the illustrations are of Chinese people, even though one of them is supposed to be Taylor Swift. She certainly looks like she's from Beijing. Yeah, I wanted to say I couldn't have said it better myself, Michael, but I thought, no, it's his letter, and he wrote it. And he really does make a very, very strong point of The Economist has been pushing the same old trope with, it's going to raise the boats. If China is going to raise the boats for everybody, they're less expensive. All of the technology that's going to China, it's just going to make them better and better. And he says, look at the reality. Here we are today. We can see clearly where the money is going that we've been putting into China. It's going to make a navy it's gone. It's already over. It's make a navy that's the biggest one in the world. They've got the technology to do everything that they want to do. Why they're not going into Taiwan? That's who's going to stop them if they really want to do that. So it's a very well written letter. At least he gets his letters published in The Economist. I would have written something like that, but I don't seem to have the right pen to write to The Economist. My letters don't get published.
You have something.
If I can jump
Go
in
ahead,
here,
Mike.
you
Go
know,
ahead, Alan.
on with respect to the pure EVs, I certainly like the chart that you put in there with respect to the free cash flow associated with the various companies that are involved here. And I think that is very telling to me. Okay. And in fact, if one does look at these various Chinese manufacturers and so on, at some point, if this is really the economy has to catch up with China too. Okay. I mean, the issue is the low price of the vehicles. The price of the vehicles, that's the price. One has to look at the cost. And this free cash flow suggests the cost. And this is the cost associated that you're working on a labor component in the creation of these things. It's in fact a labor component that is not really providing, the highest quality of life in return to the laborers. It must not be. Because in the end, if one wishes to provide compensation to folks and wishes for them to be whatever, then you end up having to pay them, whether they're in China or whether they're in Michigan. And at some point, this stuff has to catch up to them. And it seems to me that as one looks at the trajectory of those free cash flows of those companies, they're going to have a lot of catching up to do.
Mm-hmm.
and it's got to trip them up. I mean, unless they're actually enslaving everybody and keeping everybody in the commune, barefoot and whatever in the whole thing. But in the end, all that stuff I think ends up catching up to you. And, maybe they are currently paying a price for all this. And they have 1.4 billion mouths to feed. At some point, you got to feed them. Otherwise, out of the rice paddies comes a Mao or somebody else. I think. I don't know. I mean,
But
Alan,
Alan,
this is not coming at zero price to them.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is that even though they control all of the processes, even though they control the battery production, they still are not going to be able to maintain a low price forever. That these cars cost more money, even for them who are
for them. I think even if you control that, even if
seat,
even if you're there and so on and so forth, and I guess I still think maybe because I sit here in Princeton or whatever, I still think that we are the innovators of the world. And if you're out there leading in innovation, anybody that's trying to catch up with you has a hill to climb. And I haven't seen the innovation. I've seen the copying, I've seen the replication, I've seen the following. But man, whenever you follow, you end up following further and further behind, I think. And so I mean I don't know. I don't know how it fits into all this. Yes, I agree with you. There's all this stuff. And in the end, in terms of keeping these vehicles out of the United States and competing here with with the production and whatever low labor cost, whatever control and everything and so on and so forth. The spying implication of these vehicles is, I mean, we have no security of opportunity available to them. And especially if you start talking about driverless cars that we think is our hammer here, that we have to have technology, we have to have sensing on these vehicles to be able to do stuff. There is just no way that any of vehicle that we would design here is going to find its way in China. And there's no way that a Chinese vehicle is going to come here. No way. I mean, how many spies do we want out there? I mean, one of the things that one of the burdens that one has to deal with all these things is oh my goodness, they see everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and wouldn't the assumption be, Alan, that the same would be true over there when it comes to, not that they need or
you mean
or
as their motivation
what
for doing it, or as the motivation for them doing it? Maybe, but they're never going to let
what I mean
GM
is
Cruise
I'm talking about exporting the technology from U.S. companies.
There's an important difference here. First of all, the cars that have been imported into China, which were not built in China or by a Chinese company in some sort of a JV, if they're in any way connected, if they have any form of connectivity in those vehicles, they must use Chinese telephone networks. They must use internet connections or database connections which are in China by law. If you don't, you can find yourself completely out of business tomorrow. I know that because I've done it. I've done it in China.
I understand that, Michael, of course. But
okay.
That was true of every Russian spy that came in here in the United States in the 1950s, too. They did, any camera that they had on them had to be bought. I mean, but they figured out places to put them.
Yeah,
I
but
guess.
I'm talking about going into China. That was the question. Don't we have
Yeah,
to do the same thing in China? The
yeah,
answer is
but
no, we don't. Because if you take a car that's been built in China and put it into the anywhere in the European Union, there's nothing. Even though the general data laws require certain things, there's no enforcement of that. So there's nothing preventing a car coming from China with technology using connectivity of everything in that vehicle and sending all of that data back to China. There's nothing preventing that. There are no laws saying that you have to have in Europe in the databases which are based in Europe, even though the general data protection says you can't export information from the countries. It doesn't work in the same way that it works in China. Now,
no, no,
in the United sorry, Alan, but in the United States, there is no law today that prevents a car coming from China, coming from Germany, coming from Afghanistan, using an internet service and a data service that's based over there. So they can take all the data that from all those cameras that are being flown around and driven around and take all that data out of the United States.
I understand that. That's today.
That's today,
Okay.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
the reason it exists today is because we just never thought, it would work all that well, or somebody could eat the data, or we weren't afraid of it. Tomorrow, guess what? We're not going to allow that.
I'm not sure. I don't see any indication.
Oh my goodness. It doesn't just have to have Trump elected. I mean, anybody elected.
But so
Okay.
far
We're
it
just
hasn't
not.
happened.
Well, because the poop hasn't hit the fan yet.
Well,
That
it's
that poop will hit the fan, okay, and that will happen. The same way that there's no way that Waymo could possibly put a vehicle that they've put together in California and send it over to China.
correct.
Never let
That's
them.
correct.
They'll
Yeah.
never let them. I mean, it won't happen.
Yeah.
It won't get off the ship. Okay,
Exactly.
even without the same, but
Uh-huh.
goes one
That's
way, goes the other way. We're going to do the same thing, I think.
but we haven't.
But
And
I know we
I
haven't.
don't
I
see
don't
any
disagree.
pending legislation. I don't see any indication anywhere in the United States.
At
At
some point,
least,
somebody raises their hand, and says, "Hey, yo, this is
yeah,
like
right.
crazy stuff."
Yeah,
Well,
right. And
there's
somebody else
been
is
there's
going to,
been more attention paid to TikTok and the
yeah,
dangers with
yeah,
that.
exactly. Look at TikTok. TikTok tried to people tried to close down TikTok. What good did that do? Oh no, wait a minute. If you start to do that, the internet, you're gonna break the internet, and you're gonna, we have to have freedom of expression, and so what do we have? We've got a TikTok in the United States that does all the things that they want it to do in China.
I think 5 years from now, TikTok won't be here. Okay.
I
Okay.
know you
I think
don't want.
TikTok's done its thing, and
I'll
it's
write
going
I'll
down.
write that in the
Okay,
next is
write that in. Right,
Alan L. Cornhouse. It said
Alan.
TikTok won't be
Boom.
here 5 years.
Yeah, no. I mean, come on. I
One of
mean, at
one of the
some
things
point,
that
at some
TikTok
point,
is doing,
somebody,
Alan.
at some point, somebody here, designs something and gets people to say, look at those folks over there. They're not letting us put on here. They're screwing us this way. We aren't going to put up with that crap anymore.
They are spending
Okay,
quite a bit of money on
look,
advertising today, Alan,
look.
to convince people that they are good citizens, more or less,
Yeah,
doing
I
good.
know. It's so virtuous. I guess I believe it, but I just think at some point, look, we've gotten so much benefit out of China for the past 40 years because we ended up creating an economy there that allowed us to be able to go into Walmart and, buy slacks and shirts cheaper than washing them. Okay. And so, we've improved our quality of life by having all these things that we could buy that are on the backs of other people. And we send them chits that who knows how many of those things that they have that probably if they tried to collect them, we'd never pay them. I know that's a simplistic way to look at it, and it's not as good as the Economist would do, of course.
But it's pretty much what the Economist says. we have benefited tremendously ever since we opened up our markets. I think that's a load of bull.
Well, it may be, but look, I mean, Boeing sold planes. Now all of a sudden there's a plane that looks like Boeing's, and it might be better than the 737 Max. Holy hell, as soon as they start making that and trying to sell that here, guess what? Boeing is in Washington. Not going to happen,
Well,
I think,
we can talk
because
about
it'll
that.
kill Boeing.
I mean,
Maybe, I don't know.
no.
What do I know?
Well,
I'm not,
there is a lot more in the dispatcher that we're not going to be able to get to, but let's turn quick to the musings section. Michael, the subheadline is, what else can we put into our tanks? Since we've talked about all the problems with EVs.
The summary line on that is that we have been very good, not just the boys and girls in the United States, but the people all over the world have done a very good job over the years of matching the need for something with an invention that makes that need, that makes it possible to put that need into place. Cars are a very good example. We didn't need cars before the middle of the 19th century. We didn't need them. People didn't need to have cars. But as soon as we needed to have cars, we needed to have a way of getting places faster and more comfortably eventually, but at least faster. Cars were invented. And I start out with the need to have something that could be put into another thing that wasn't possible, an aluminum engine that was light enough to put into to a contraption that could be fueled with something that was good enough and powerful enough to lift that motor off the ground, and we had flight. I mean, we didn't have gasoline before the middle of the 19th century because we didn't need it. Now, we had other things that we could, make fires with, but we didn't need to have gasoline. And then diesel came along and invented an engine, and then the fuel that would go into it. We have these. We've done a very good job. Now we've gotten to a point where it seems like everybody wants to sit down and say, we've solved the problem of energy. The future of energy is windmills and solar panels. We buy the windmills and solar panels for as cheap as we can from China, and we put them everywhere on our roofs, on our temples, on our churches. We put them everywhere, including all of our fields. We cover all of our fields with solar. We put up huge windmills everywhere, and that solves the problem. Guess what? It doesn't. The sun doesn't shine every day. I mean, the thing that I find incredible, we're trying to solve a problem that we say climate change. The weather is changing. We've got strange things happening with the weather, but no one thinks that possibly that volcano is going to go off, and it's going to cover the earth for another 2 or 3 years, and the sun isn't going to shine anymore. And we've got all these solar panels, and they can't do diddly squat.
Michael, please don't say that. Please don't say that.
The point.
Please don't say that Mother Nature could completely screw us.
The point of the article is very simple. Let people continue to invent, because they do a very good job when they need to do inventions. We can make fission will work eventually. We're going to get engines to be extremely efficient without any carbon. Hydrogen is a very good example. We're working on those things. Please, governments, please, people, stop listening to kids who are crying and whining and start, funding the kinds of technology and research that's going to get us someplace.
But Michael, this is what's happening, okay? It is what's happening. There is a discussion about hybrids now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the original hybrids, my goodness, they were done on batteries that were, on my goodness, were a total disaster. Okay, not I'm overstating it. And in some sense, because we went to the battery electric, we are making some improvements finally in batteries. And now, if you have an improvement in batteries, then it's no big deal to just stick one into internal combustion engine vehicle and do that. So we are doing that. The part of the problem here is that we have a crisis. The crisis, whatever it has, is then got bigger and bigger. Nobody was doing anything, and then somebody found, hey, here is this one little potential thing, whatever could be a solution, and then everybody, well, that should be easy. Oh my goodness, Mother Nature's going to give it to us all. It's all sitting out there free, and whatever, and so on and so forth. Enormous forces behind it. And then all of a sudden, one somebody started reading some of the fine print and saying, hey, yo, all the things that you write about. So it is evolving, okay? We did throw money at it in the beginning, but that is coming back. And so, we're going to get back, I think, into an equilibrium on this thing so that we get better solutions. As I've been saying, look, if you want to look at this thing, just look at the energy flow charts from whatever we'll put it out there. You just see it, okay? In terms of the energy that's being consumed today, even today. Even this year, sun and wind provide very little of the whole what we need. And if you look at the biggest losses, where the biggest uses, they go to heat up the world because we're creating electricity. Okay, and if you look at a really bad way to have energy, electricity, my mother was right. Turn off the light. It's expensive. Use this for the things that you only really need it for, okay? Not something else that you have a nice easy substitute. Instead of putting oil in a lamp and all that stuff that you had and kill whales and all that stuff, you can use electricity for that one. For other things that, so it's, yes, we've been a little off equilibrium, but I think I have a much better view, aspiration. But look, Michael, the one thing, and I'm going to have to hop off right now. The dispatcher this time, really great job. Okay, and I think in the introduction, said that's the reason for the book. Read the book, really. Okay, I know it's $100. We didn't price it. That's right. We're not gonna. I mean, you would think we should be getting much more, shouldn't we? What the
published
hell?
by
Elsevier.
You can find it on Amazon.
Yeah,
Michael,
I sent them a note saying, how do you do pricing? I mean, you could sell 10x if you reduce the price under 25. They told me, we know the publishing business, okay? Don't tell us what to do.
The driverless car business. Yeah.
And look at how great I'm doing. I got torched. We got torched.
Well, anyway. Michael, thank you once again for joining in. As Alan said, people can find the Dispatcher, and you should be reading it at michaellsenna.com. Thank you, Michael.
And you'll see it in the e-letter coming out. So, you're going to get it from all sorts of ways. Okay.
And we want to remind everyone, again, the book is called The Real Case for Driverless Mobility. It is out now. And a reminder to save the date for the 6th Smart Driving Car Summit, Princeton. The evening of May 29th is when it starts, goes through the 31st.
Yeah, and with respect to the summit, we've done 5 of them. I really think that, of course, not event. This is really going to be a good. If you're interested in discussing the kinds of things that we discuss here, if you're not, then of course you won't come, and maybe it'll just be the 3 of us, But whatever, it looks like it's going to be a good one.
Absolutely. Well, you can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Amazon, Google. You can get smart speakers to play us too if you got one. You can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thanks for listening or watching, and please continue to stay safe.
Bye all.